united with me.
God calls, and we listen with our ears and we listen with our hearts. God calls, and we respond by gathering in community to worship this day. God calls, and we gather around this brilliant light to celebrate the presence of God in our midst as the Spirit-blessed people and the followers of Jesus. God calls, and we come to worship. I invite us to open our hearts and our ears as we share together responsively a portion of Psalm 119, reading the first 8 verses. Happy are those who live a blameless life, who follow your law, O God. Happy are those who keep your decrees, who seek you with their whole heart. They also do no wrong, but walk in your ways. You have given your precepts for us to keep diligently. Oh, that my ways might be satisfied in the keeping of your statutes. Then I will be put to shame when I hear to all of your commandments. I will truly thank you from the heart when I learn of your righteous decrees. I will keep your statutes. Oh, do not utterly forsake me. Happy are they who follow your law, O God. Our other reading of Scripture is from the book of Deuteronomy. This collection of verses are words from Moses that he shared with the people who were the wandering people of Israel in the wilderness. The people of Israel have already left behind them the days of slavery in Egypt and crossed the Red Sea. As they journeyed towards the promised land, Moses continued to lead and inspire them to choose a life that was living close to God. God who inspired them and blessed them to draw closer into the presence of God. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 15 to 20. Moses said to the gathered people, I have set before you today life and prosperity, death and adversity. If you obey the commandments of God that I am commanding you today, by loving God, walking in the way and observing God's commandments, decrees, and ordinances, then you shall live and become numerous, and God will bless you in the land that you are entering to possess. But if your heart turns away, and you do not hear, but are led astray to bow down to other gods and serve them, I declare to you today that you shall certainly perish. You shall not live long in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to enter and to possess. I call heaven and earth to witness against you today that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Choose life, so that you and your descendants may live, loving, obeying, and holding fast to God, for that means life to you and length of days, so that you may live in the land that God swore to give to your ancestors, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Holy wisdom, holy words. Thanks be to God. Muriel Cook, 91. Thomas Delgado, 99. Margaret MacDonald, 101. Phyllis Spencer, 86. In each edition of Broadview magazine, there is the list of individuals from across our country and involved in our church, the United Church of Canada, that are chronicled in here of who have ended their journey of life among us. I've shared with you a few of the names of the people that were contained in this particular issue of the Broadview magazine. Advanced age, long life, and abundance of years. We celebrate the life of several individuals across our country, and I've noticed this in several of the magazines and the editions of the Broadview magazine that came out, that in those pages are individuals who have lived a long life, that have been involved in our church. As you've heard, some of them were well into their 90s and some beyond the century mark. If you've watched these announcements in the Broadview magazine, you probably noticed as well that many of them contained individuals who have lived long lives. I remember reading a story one time that people of faith tend to live longer lives. That is a hopeful word and a joyful thing to receive, and to acknowledge that people of faith live longer. There have probably been studies on that of why and how those two things correlate together to stretch out the length of life. I think one of those things, the correlation between life and faith, is that it produces a sense of happiness, of contentment, of enjoyment. As a person of faith, and hopefully as a person of faith, you too will experience a long life because of the way that you live out your calling as a disciple of Jesus, as a beloved child of God, as a person who is blessed and inspired by the Spirit. It's probably not just by accident that faith and life and joy and happiness all come together to produce a healthier person, a person who lives long, journeys well, and celebrates the goodness of life. I randomly picked up a copy of The Observer, or the Broadview magazine, to observe and see what individuals were contained within those pages of who have ended this life journey and entered into the realm of life beyond our sight. And it just by chance, this one came from June of 2022. And on the front of it is an individual, and the title of the magazine is Dancing for Joy, an individual from Yukon, and his story of how he spreads joy and how he expresses joy through the Benga dancing. And if you haven't had a chance to see this particular edition, I invite you to read it. It talks about the ways in which he is able to express joy through his dancing, and how that others are captured and enthralled by the way that he shares his joy of not just dancing, but of life, and engages them and inspires them on how to fill themselves with that presence of joy. Whether it's dancing, whether it's music, whether it's just surrounding ourselves with good and positive attitudes, we feel better. If you're having a bad day, if you're struggling, if you're feeling challenged by life and the circumstances that are surrounding you, finding a few morsels of pieces in your life that bring you joy, that can make you smile, not just in your face, but in your heart and your spirit, can transform a gloomy day into a brighter day. It's kind of like what we've experienced over the last few weeks, when we had several days, I think many days, that were filled with clouds and cooler weather. And I felt that on those days that my spirit was heavy, that I lacked energy. I had very little enthusiasm to do much more than just what needed to be done. But then one day, there was that sunshine that began in the morning as it creeped over the eastern horizon. And there was a spectacular sunrise. And the rest of the day was filled with bright sunshine and blue skies. And just in those few moments of that one day, I could feel my spirit lighten. I could sense a renewed energy. What a gift that was. And it was that gift of brightness, of sunshine, and the hope of warmth that made my day journey more positive. And even though a few days after that, the weather changed and the clouds rolled in, I still held on to that positive energy that was shared with me from the Creator through the glimpse of sunshine and warmth and beauty. And it was that positive energy that carried me through some of the difficult days that followed, the challenging day, the gloomy days. Joy, happiness, gifts of life. The readings of Scripture that we heard today, the first one from the book of Deuteronomy, were words that Moses shared with the people who were escaping their time of slavery and journeying towards an uncertain place, but they knew it was a promised land. And they journeyed through several circumstances that challenged them. And we know the story of Moses and the people of Israel wandering through the deserts and through the wilderness, and how they were challenged and wondered why God was putting them here in this place and why God wasn't giving them all that they wanted. And Moses, he was attentive to the needs of the people. He was aware of their attitudes, and he was aware that sometimes they lost sight of the vision that God had for them. And so Moses, he offered them the words, as he did throughout the wilderness time. He offered them words that guided them and reminded them of the presence of God in their midst. And he said, I offer you the gift of life. And even though there are challenges and stresses, I offer you the possibilities of positive living that is available when we acknowledge the presence of God in our midst. He offered them these words because he knew there was going to be challenging situations. And even in those challenging situations, even in those negative days, hold on to the positives. Hold on to those things that gladden your heart, that fill your spirit with joy. And as they continued their journey, he wanted them to draw closer into the presence of God, and let God draw closer into their presence, into their spirits. To remind them that happiness is a positive. Happiness is a way in which we can live and thrive and celebrate life. I know that often we encounter individuals who seem to be negative. We encounter situations that individuals will always share what is wrong rather than celebrate what is right. And also possibly in that same situation, same circle of people, whether it's in a meeting or in our communities, we will find those individuals who always seem to have that extra positive energy. We may call it the Pollyanna effect, where everything is happiness and everything is joy. We could be those individuals. We could strive being those individuals who celebrate joy, who lift the goodness out of the midst of all of us and remind us that happy are we, joyful are we. I'm reminded of this time as we continue to journey together as communities of faith, that we encounter several things that we think we cannot do any longer, or we grieve the things that we've lost and things that we've had to leave behind. But we acknowledge that in our midst there are abundant of possibilities that are happening. There's joy in being together in ministry. There's joy in being the people of God. There's joy in finding out that faith, the celebrating of God's presence, the living out of our calling as the disciples of Jesus, acknowledging the gifts and the blessings and the abundance of the Spirit in our midst, is something that can bring us great joy. I'm always thinking of ways on how to be positive. How that we can lessen the negatives and celebrate the good things in our midst, the good things we're doing, the abundance of joy that we bring into the lives of others. If I was to challenge each and every one of us on ways on how to be happier, more joy-filled, more exuberant with life, I would challenge us to find one day in which everything we do, every word that we share, is a positive. And if we can get through that one day, maybe we can stretch it to 2 days. And if we do enough of that, whether we're alone or when we're in a group, we can transform the world and live abundantly as Moses inspired the people that are chronicled in the book of Deuteronomy. How to live life fully, abundantly, and with happiness. On these cold, dark days of winter, in these cold February days when wind circulates around and chills us right to the bone, we're mindful that there's warmth in the sunshine at this time of year. We celebrate that the lengthening of days fills our life with more light and more positivity. The transition from coldness into the warmth of coming spring is a gift for us. It's a reminder to us that God is continually growing and glowing and warming us with each day ahead of us. May we find how we can be growing, glowing, and being more abundant with positive attitudes, positive words, positive comments in the ministry that we are to share. And it can be quite infectious. Perhaps God is calling us to be that voice, to be that dancer who brings joy, the one who celebrates goodness and lifts up those that are feeling downtrodden and negative. So our challenge is how to be the people of God who choose life over adversities, who lives in hope rather than despair. And as was chronicled in the words from the book of Psalms, happy are those who walk in the way of God. Happy are us as God's people, as the disciples of Christ. For may we live in a long and full life knowing that faith is good for us. God, following God, living with God is good for us. May we, with God's continual presence, the blessing of the joyful, happy Spirit of God circulate among us. May we live long, prosperous, and good lives. Blessings to you. Blessings to all of us who live in God's way and who are called to live with happiness, with joy, and with delight. Amen. We take a few moments within our worship to unite our hearts in prayer, offering into the tender care of God all that we carry in our hearts. I invite you to join your heart with mine in prayer. Breath of life, source of love, compassionate one who holds us tenderly and with love, We feel your presence among us and within us. With every breath we inhale the joy of life, and let it invigorate us to be your vibrant images of love in the world, in our communities, and within the community of faith in which we love. We are grateful to hear your call for us to be your messengers in the world today, and how when we interact with others, they can feel your unbounded love pouring forth from the words and deeds inspired by our faith that we share. May we strive each day to reflect your image in the world and to make a difference in the lives of those for whom we share a path of life. As individuals and as a community, we hold in our hearts the events of our world, as well as those close to our circle of daily living and our circles of families and friends. At times, there are ways we can tangibly reach out, connect, offer assistance and support, while at other times we seem less helpful because of distance and abilities. But deep in our hearts, we hold many in our thoughts and prayers, trusting that the power of prayer, holding others close to our hearts, and within the realm of your embracing spirit, will be transformed into relief, comfort, peace, strength, and courage for those we are holding. We particularly hold in prayer those enduring the horrific effects of earthquakes, flooding, drought, the extremes of frigid cold and sweltering heat, and other natural disasters. We continue to pray for peace and for those countries like Ukraine that continue to live in the midst of bombs and the threat of invasions and destruction. We also hold in our prayer those who are experiencing chaos, nervousness, anxieties, and uncertainties. Inspired by challenging finances, job losses, the death of loved ones, the unstable medical system, a shift in family dynamics, housing shortages, hunger, loneliness, fear, and struggling to navigate through each day. In silence, we offer into your care, O God, those for whom we are holding in our hearts, and let our words and the images of our minds be placed into your tender, loving heart. Hear the prayers we have offered, those spoken and those offered in silence. May we trust in your ever-present love to care for those for whom we care for. Grant all of us patience, courage, and strength to know we are held in your love. As your hopeful, happy, and willing vessels of your love here in your creation, we pray. Amen.
Recently, I received a phone call from an individual who had received a gift from the church during the past Christmas season. Their words were filled with joy, with love, and with deep gratitude. It wasn't a huge gift, but it made a difference in their lives. Each time that we offer a gift to our church, whether it's through our weekly offerings or through our gifts that we offer online, we make a difference in the lives of others. We never know who will be touched or inspired by what we do, by what we say. As we share our gifts this day, may we give with a sense of hope, with gratitude, and with abundant joy. Let us celebrate the gifts we offer this day and every day. We've gathered in worship this day and surrounded ourselves with the light of God's love. Let us go out into the world and carry this light into the lives of others and illuminating our paths as we fulfill our calling as the people of God, as the followers of Jesus. Amen.